Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Free Agents Podcast. Back again to talk some more Traitors. We're in week 6 of the show, which is crazy because we're on episode 9, and we have a great episode of the podcast for you today, talking all things Traitors. Of course, first I am Matt here with Brian Scally. Scally, what's up?
Oh, hello, hello. The usual, very good, excited to be talking here. Did a little recruitment of our own, brought in a very solid faithful to be talking about this most recent episode. So I'm very excited.
Yes, you say that, though. I got to say, if I ever got to see this guy play the Traitors, I would love to see him as a traitor, but we'll get his thoughts on all of that. We're joined today by another Survivor New Era standout, Sam Phalen. Sam, what's up?
What's up? I can tell you assuredly that I have far more enthusiasm about being recruited by you guys than our buddy Eric did when he was recruited by Rob. He did not seem super stoked to become a traitor, but I'm stoked to be here and talk about it.
I mean, I find it scary, but that's how I view games. I don't. Would you be afraid to be recruited this late in the game, or recruited at all, Sam?
I think being recruited is like the home run. You know, you that's putting your name on a group project and getting an A at the end, like right at the end. Especially because I think, and we'll obviously talk a lot of Rob Roush here, I'm sure. One thing I think he's done very well as a trader is play the game like a faithful. I just feel like a lot of his actions, he almost convinces himself that he's a faithful. And one of the best ways to play is as if you're a faithful. And the easiest way to do that is to actually be a faithful that then gets like integrated into groups and builds a bunch of trust and then convert to a traitor later. I don't know if Eric's doing a great job of maintaining the his same demeanor and behaviors and stuff, and that could end up being his demise later on. But I think that that's the home run for a faithful, is make everybody love you and trust you and then jump on late.
Scally agrees with that.
Yeah, definitely an ideal move. It feels like Eric was a little bit shocked, kind of. You gave at least a confessional of like, can I do this? I'm not so sure. And I think that we've seen maybe why he had some of those concerns later in the episode.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going for highest win equity, this feels like a slam dunk.
Safe from murder at this stage is huge. And I think the most important thing for me would be just like knowing where all the pieces are on the board.
Yeah.
Obviously, the traders have a level of information because they're the traders. But I do think if you're Rob right here and you're a trader that's by yourself, or, you know, and Rob is maybe a bad example to use, but I think a lot of traders find themselves not being in the inner faithful circle, right? They don't really know who is the faithful coming for next. Where is this plan being laid out? And if you're recruited, like Eric has been a part of all of these conversations. I think he comes in with a really easy read of the room of who's next on the pecking order and what the next few banishments might look like. Then he gets to find out who the traitor is and have all the information on the board. And that's a really advantageous spot to be in this late.
If you're not an anxious person, which I think he might be.
Yeah.
Sam, we were talking to Franny. We talked to Franny last week, and I was bringing up, you know, both you and her share that you play a lot of Clock Tower. And I know that in Clock Tower, there's something similar that can happen, that you can be switched from good to bad. And I think back and forth or bad to good. I don't know. You tell me.
I was actually going to bring this up. There's a role in Blood on the Clock Tower called the Marionette. And the Marionette is an evil character. It's a minion to your big demon, right? Which in this instance would be our traitor. And the marionette does not know that they're the marionette. They see a good character. They believe they're on the good team. They play the game like they're on the good team. And everything that they learn the entire game is wrong because they're secretly a marionette that's evil. And so a lot of people have different philosophies on how to play it and how to use it. But one line of thinking with the marionette is don't tell your marionette, because your marionette can build up a ton of trust if they genuinely believe that they're good. And I think that that's an asset somebody like Rob could be using to his advantage here, of picking up a player in Eric who he's like, yeah, he's played the entire game as a good-hearted faithful. And now he is on my side and has no other choice but to help me.
Yeah. Eric had me cracking up when I went to rewatch this episode when he was whispering everything he said
Yeah.
around Rob. Well, actually, no, he screamed, I think, at one point outside with Rob, which I was like, now you want to yell? But
Right.
then when he was in confessional and he's like, this is my first breakfast as a traitor, as if everybody was right outside the door and could hear him. So he's definitely, really nervous here. And Sam, we see in this episode that the anxiety, the nerves, whatever, they really take over in a big way. And by the end of the episode, we have Kristen Kish that's like, you're acting different.
I want to give all the snaps and props in the world. I love Kristen Kish. Was unfamiliar with Kristen Kish before the season of The Traitors, and I have been eating her up on these episodes. I just like such badass energy. She's just so direct, and so like even when she's wrong and her read, being a faithful is so hard because you're going on TV and you're probably just going to look stupid because, you have to give spicy confessionals about how you think you know who it is all the time. And you're almost always going to be incorrect. Every time Kristen Kish speaks, I'm like, yeah, she got it. It's Tara Lipinski. That's duh.
It's not, but you're like, she sounds right.
Right. She fully convinces me. And she just has this aura that I find very, very cool and intimidating. And I love the way that she interrogates and, talking to Eric right there, right? It's just like very direct questions. She's not trying to beat around the bush or do this little like cat and mouse game like we saw Colton do. She's just like, hey, let me ask you something. Why'd you do this? Because here's how it read to me. And he gives an answer. She goes, yeah, that answer is not good enough. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to like push you a little bit harder. But it's great. And I can imagine how somebody who's a little bit anxious like Eric, who's already feeling the pressure of this newfound traitor status, that being one-on-one with Kristen Kish is putting your feet to the fire in an intense way.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen's been so fun. I feel like even though she was wrong a couple of times, sure, I would say until accusing Tara, I was like, she's at least identifying like dangerous players in the game, whether they're a traitor or not. Like Colton was not good for Kristen's game in any way, shape, or form. Very easily could have just run the round table in her direction if he was allowed to stay for much longer. So I feel like Kristen is kind of stepping almost into the spot that she created by like that vacuum opening up of getting Colton out of that game. And so I think that even if she is wrong a little bit, it's almost better because you're less threatening to the traitors. So I've been very, very happy with Kristen. I'm hoping she can stick around.
I like when we see these people do the like you said, Colton, he's either a traitor or he's just like a very reckless faithful. And so yeah, if you're Kristen, shoot for him, like take him out, have him as a target. He does nothing to benefit you whatsoever. And I always wonder when I watch Traitors how much of that is part of the thinking that a lot of these people have that we maybe don't see just because of creative choices that they want with the storytelling of the show. But that was talked about with Michael Rappaport a little bit, was just like, yeah, you're either like a traitor or you're just like a frustrating faithful that makes it harder for us to do our job.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, she was on the right path to try to get him out there, and ultimately, it was very funny when he gets murdered, and she's like, "Well, I got that one wrong," but she's going to get back on course and try to figure it out next. The Eric stuff was very fascinating at the end of this episode, but Sam, we also have the earlier in the episode with Kristen Kish and Tara Lipinski. If someone, I'll say specifically, if Kristen Kish came to me and was like, "You're not confident. I gravitate towards confident people, and you're very nervous," I think I'd leave. I think I'd walk out of the castle and say, you know what? I can't recover from that.
Well, that conversation actually, and hearing how Tara talked about it afterwards, that was my Kristen Kish, here's your flowers moment. Mm-hmm. Because we haven't seen a ton of her throughout. Like some of these faithfuls have been a little bit more understated in the edit throughout what we've seen so far. And we're getting a lot more of Kristen here coming up. But to me, it's the audacity to sit there. Tara's putting all of her trust and faith in you. Mm-hmm. I really think it's Steven. No, it's not. And actually, I think it's you. Straight to her face. And have Tara, mind you, not be like, what if it's Kristen? We need to turn this on Kristen. Her reaction is, oh no, I trust Kristen so much and she doesn't believe me and thinks it's me. So now I have to pivot my entire strategy to cater to Kristen and what I can get Kristen on board for. That to me is like, wow, you are respected and not suspected by anybody. She might be the only one. Her I mean, she might be the only faithful, her and Mark maybe, that we have not heard suspected
Not a
by
single
other
bit.
faithful in the game, which is crazy. I would think of somebody who has that aura that I talk about. Like, I don't think it's news to these people that Kristen can command your attention and whip votes together and has a lot of power, where you could see her being a fantastic traitor, and yet nobody is even remotely concerned about her right now.
Yeah, that's exactly it. As I feel like so much of the traders is narrowing out like who could not pull this off. And I don't think that Kristen is someone that you could reliably narrow out. Obviously, through behaviors, I think you could probably read like, all right, she's doing X, Y, and Z that makes it most likely that she's a faithful. But I would have a really hard time ever clearing her from that list. And so, Sam, like you clocked, as soon as Tara gets, read a little bit by Kristen as you're not confident. I like confident people, which maybe aids to the fact that Kristen is not like turned around and suspected in that moment, but it's like you're drawn to Kristen of like, I need her trust. I need to get to work with her. It really is like such a positive check in Kristen's column of like playing a very, very solid game.
Do you think it has to do with, and this is like my big takeaway when I watch the show now, is the meta that now exists in Traitors, right? Because it's cyclical and it changes season to season based on what we've seen most recently. But like Kristen, I think has a lot of similarities to Candace. They're very well spoken and captivating and kind of like leaders, and they're lovely to be around. But then you can also see that like they've got a little bit of a mean streak where if they have to do this Traitors thing, they can do it. Like they can read you down, like you said. And so I think that people were like talking about Candace and were like, you know what, she would be a great traitor. So let's suspect her because she would be good at it. Maybe because she's a housewife and that like there's some sort of like, we've seen housewives be traitors before. We haven't seen a chef be a traitor before. I wonder how much of like the meta of what your background is like helping Kristen here where it wouldn't.
Though to that fact, I would be much more suspicious in looking at the meta. I'm always like, why are you picking someone as a traitor? They're going to get most of the airtime. They're going to be someone that you want to build up as a character. So either they're a phenomenal confessionalist, a great game player, or there's someone that Peacock just wants to promote in general. And I think that's why like you want the housewives to stick around. It's your content. And Kristen falls under the Peacock umbrella. She is a Bravo host on Top Chef, very popular character. So I would be way more likely to think that Kristen could potentially be a like off the bat traitor than let's say a Tara or a Steven, who are the other names that are getting thrown around right
the
now.
Olympics.
They got to pump up the Olympics. Exactly.
It's so funny. Literally, just the idea that they need to promote the Olympics is something that in my household we've been making fun of a lot. That they need.
I wasn't going to watch figure skating, but then Johnny Weir really got me got me wanting to tune in.
And you know what? That's kind of been the case for me. I've been paying more attention because I hear Johnny Weir's voice in the background, and I'm like, oh, is Tara there too? Oh, my friend.
You are the target audience,
and apparently. It's working. They're promoting the Olympics to me, and it's working. But as far as the meta is concerned, I was, especially while we're on the topic of Kristen, she was so focused on Tara this episode. She tells Tara, I think it's you. She says, I'm voting for Tara no matter what. And we're out here talking about the meta of it's probably a guy, right? Yep. We're going to see a guy go next. And Kristen's like, Tara. So I just want to get in her head. Like, I want to like peek into the full catalog of confessionals that she's giving and hear her say, oh, I'm not worried about the fact that I think it's a guy. I just think it's Tara. Sam, I'm like wondering why she's so focused on Tara specifically right now.
Yeah, I wonder two things that I think of. Number one is how plugged in are some of these people? Like we know, like Rob Sesternino was doing his full deep dive into international trader seasons, right? And trying to get like a history of the show, and if you learn that you're going out there and you say yes to this, Kristen could be somebody who took the liberty of educating herself. I know Mark Ballas has talked about, he's got a whole thing of notes that he brought into the castle with him that he's like referring back to. And I do think there's an international season. I haven't seen any of it, but that there is an international season that was all female in the turret. And so I think if you have that familiarity, maybe there is this thing in the back of your head that says it's not impossible, right? We would be silly to assume that it has to be a guy and lose because of that. And then I also wonder how much of this is Rob's doing of building. He pretty early on was kind of building this all housewife turret, like all female turret kind of vibe. We've heard him mention it a few times to some other faithfuls in his trusted circle. But I totally agree with you, Matt. I would love to know how much, because we hear it when it talks about a gamer or a housewife or like this or a that. And yet we haven't heard somebody be like, well, surely we should just banish all the guys until we get a traitor, right? And I'm curious if people are thinking that, or if they've lost the plot entirely.
Especially because we assumed that this recruitment of Eric Nam, and then they were talking about they were like, oh, maybe we'll murder Stephen Kleti. You're not going to murder Stephen Kleti. You need to keep the guys in right now as shields in front of you, and obviously that's what they do. Stephen gets banished. We'll talk about him, but
Dorinda was the only choice for murder. Yes. I thought, like the easiest choice possible when you look at Kristen having the shield, Natalie being such a big like in Rob's corner, and also having suspicion on her. There's a non-zero chance you could always throw it back on Natalie in the heat of the moment.
More than Dorinda,
And then you're trying to maintain, keep Steven in, keep Eric in, like keep people alive and in the game that you could. Johnny obviously was a target for banishment here. And it's in Rob's best interest to have as many men as possible late. Because what I think he's going to need to do to finish all of this off is like either Eric's going to have to go, which is looking possible now, or I think you're just going to have to banish all the other guys at the final fire or whatever when they're not revealing their roles anymore. Because you need to have the plausible deniability of, hey, if we kick out Mark Ballas at the end, maybe it was just Mark the whole time. And that's like a thing that Rob could hide behind.
It's funny because it feels like Dorinda was the first murder that I actually like thought made sense, since probably like Rob Cesternino. I feel like so many of them, and like that's almost given Rob like even more like area to hide, because you think that you want to use the murders on these like quiet people who are never getting voted out of banishment, and yet the people who are going out are like Colton and Jam Jam and Monet Exchange, and it's like, oh, well, why? Like why are we wasting these opportunities on all these people who may have been shields later on? And so I'm glad that they finally course corrected with Dorinda here.
Stephen Colletti's again the one that gets banished in this episode. Sam, this guy who is not a current reality TV star. He's certainly had his moment, I guess back in the day, you might say. But here and now, like nothing about what he brought to the season was giving like intense gamer vibe, or just like really the most involved with the game. He had people that seemed to trust him, that he trusted. Mark Ballas was one of those in this episode that was like, I'm not voting you, I'm with you. But at the end of the day, this Lisa putting the rocks or the gold into his case was just never going away. Natalie thought he was a little sus the way that he was talking at breakfast, which is kind of funny because all he said was that he was nervous last night. He didn't say that much. But what'd you think of Steven and his exit here?
Yeah, I think Dorinda mentioned it in one of her like exit things on the official Traitors podcast or whatever. I saw her talk about how she's like, I think so much of this is luck, right? And it's like, yeah, that is Traitors, and mostly, especially as a faithful. And I think Steven's a great example of that, of just had Lisa thrown her gold at somebody else, at Mark Ballas, right? Is Mark the one getting all this heat while Steven skates by into like the top 7 pretty comfortably? And it's just kind of like, people are grasping at straws, looking for any reason to get your name out there. And even as we saw with Ron Funches earlier, it's like one thing that now puts your name out there, people are going to keep circling back to it, even if you're 3 round tables removed from the act in question, right? It's been a while since Lisa Rinna was in the castle at this point, a few rounds, and we're still talking about the gold that she put in his chest. So I actually think Steven was the people think Steven is what Rob is. Like he has this kind of like cool, calm, and collected vibe to him. He was very unfrazzled at the round table every time people came at him, and going back after Natalie was probably like
I know you are, but what am I? Like,
don't do that, yeah. But I think he did like handle himself pretty well overall, of just kind of like justifying it and defending himself. And he has that really composed nature. And you heard, I think Kristen talked about it at one point a few episodes ago, of one of the what the hunks have to be a traitor, and they were all looking at Steven as he would just be so good as this like calming force in a traitor of housewives, of Lisa Rinna and Candace, and then you've got calm Steven, like whatever. But that person has been Rob, and they're just looking in the wrong place for the right idea.
It's interesting because I feel like, if anything, the Traitors don't ever interact in public. They're
Right.
always trying to completely separate themselves from each other. And so you would think that things like Candace suggesting Johnny, Lisa giving the gold to Steven should almost be like marks against why they would be traitors. I think, and when Sammy brought up that, like, if this happened to Mark, would he just be going home here? And I think my gut instinct was almost no. I feel like Mark has a couple of like really decent relationships. I think particularly we've seen it highlighted that like him, Kristen, and Eric were pretty close coming up until this point. And I think Steven had decent relationships as well, but I think he got unlucky that one of the closer ones was Rob, who like recognizes it's a lot easier to get rid of Steven here than it is to, murder him another time. So I think that maybe like Steven didn't do too much wrong, but the relationships were just like not as good as a Mark or someone else where they could pull him through.
Yeah, it does seem like Rob, but it does seem like Rob has started to see the writing on the wall a little bit of, I'm going to need Steven as a banishment in order to because they're going to look at the guys. Rob is clearly worried about them looking at the guys. And so it felt like he distanced himself a little bit from Steven in an effort to make him one of those fall guys.
Exactly what I was going to say. He obviously a lot of this goes back to how Rob and Eric are going to navigate the rest of the game. And as far as like making the move on the board right now, they made the right move. They banished the right person so that next round table, they're hoping that they can get Johnny Weir out still. And that's probably still the most likely outcome. And as they said at the turret, I think it was at the top of the episode, we only need to get through what, like 2 more round tables or something like that. So they're getting closer.
I want to talk about this because I think they should have banished Johnny Weir.
Ooh.
I do.
Okay.
I think one, it's a lot easier to sell to your faithfuls when you get back of like, we all talked about we were going Johnny. Like, that's what, so we did that. We were confused, but we just did what we said we were going to do coming in versus now you have Eric like trying to explain why he pivoted.
Yeah.
How he says, I was so sure it was Johnny. And then you're trying to tell Kristen about why you like last minute changed your mind and flipped it to Steven, who we now know is a faithful. I also think that banishing Johnny, who is coming very hard after Steven with Tara, points the finger at Steven when Johnny is inevitably a faithful when he's up there. So it like your Steven boot is still then next in line. And I also think then Tara is the easiest murder of all time. Like, did Tara be like Johnny gets banished, is a faithful. Tara is up for murder as one of the people that were like put up by the traitors and left in the crate. I think she is then a very easy knock her out to her and her best friend go out back to back. And you kind of wipe your hands clean of both of them while maintaining a suspect. I think that would have been the more ideal move because what I'm worried about here is Steven's gone. Everybody you would think the intuitive move is, all right, okay, let's pivot back to Johnny, but everybody just came to this consensus that Johnny's not a traitor. Like we all believed him so much that we pivoted to somebody completely different, similar to like what happened with Natalie when she went up against Lisa, right? Like Natalie was taking a lot of heat, was under the gun, and then crushed it at a round table. Everybody was like, okay, so it's not Natalie, let's change. And Natalie hasn't been under question ever since then. Like she got out of there really well. And there's still this duo in the game. And it's like weird that you have this duo that is never going to go against each other. If one of them is a faithful, I think you would assume the other one is also a faithful. They make me uncomfortable if I'm Rob or if I especially Eric right now. And I think that they could have gotten both of them out just by sticking to their guns.
If you believe them, that's 2 faithfuls that you can take to the end of the game. And I mean, you may be nervous about that they would vote you out, but like, if you believe them, that they're faithfuls, or if you trust that they're faithfuls. And like Scally, you pointed out in our episode recap, that the 2 of them should be cleared from the mission where, Scally was making the point of like, why would they put themselves out there as much as they were? Why would they vote wrong in the round, in the final round if they were traitors? So there's just every reason in the world to feel good about them right now.
I think there's a couple things. I think as far as Natalie coming away clear, Natalie has the benefit of Lisa getting banished and being a traitor, which Johnny does not have for Steven right now. I think I understand from Rob's perspective why Steven over Johnny, because as soon as I hear Tara's name come up, I had thought the same thing. You get Johnny banished next week. Tara's the obvious murder. We move on, and then we figure it out from there. I think as soon as I'm hearing Kristen's on Tara, I'm like, could I be selfish? Could I get a Tara first, then Johnny banishment, and get extra murders in here and waste 2 full roundtables moving forward, whether that be, the finale, the final 4, whatever. So the fact that both of their names.
Do you expect him to push for Tara then as like the next name?
I think that Rob has shown to be someone who's really good at being like the support guy and not getting clocked at it. Whenever someone brings up the name, he's like, oh yeah, and you know what? This is also what they said, and kind of lets them go ahead and spin their wheels pretty much uncontrollably, and he just backs away until maybe the round table if he needs to. But I think that Rob is not someone that is getting clocked like Eric, as like he's not doing a lot of speaking at the round table. It's kind of just his baseline. Unless he's going against a housewife, he just is allowed to be a little more quiet. So I think Rob, I don't know that he goes for Tara. I think if Kristen starts pushing it, I think he's going to be very willing to let that happen.
Yeah. I just, the reason that the duo would worry me if I'm Rob is because I think those are the 2 people in the game that he has the worst relationship with
at this point.
We have absolutely nothing of Rob with Johnny or Rob with Tara. And we know Rob was tight with Steven. And so like that, all it takes is somebody like this is what I'm afraid of for him, is that somebody like Kristen starts to buy their story, right? And now Kristen's off Tara and Johnny, and she's looking with Tara and Johnny as a voting block of 3 this late in the game at like who else it could be. And especially if they hit right on somebody like Eric, right? Like what else does that do for Rob's game? I think that it would get it could get scary for him, or it's the high risk, high reward play, because I think it could be the cleanest, like you said, cheekiest way to steal a couple of murders and get himself to the end. But it also it leaves himself more exposed to people figuring out what's going on without just keeping this spiral of confusion going. And that's how he's played the whole game up to this point.
100%. And I do think the concern also here is, if we look at how many weeks there are left, is this the last murder? Like, I don't know that they usually will say it, but there will be 6. I think it's 8 right now. We're going to get down to 7. We'll banish to get down to 6. And that really is such a spot where I don't know if they will allow him a final murder going into the finale. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We've had 6-person finales. We've had 5-person. So I think if he is not going, if this is the last murder, then I do think it is probably Johnny murder Tara, because I could not go into a final 6 with 2 people being connected who like might not get voted out. Like, that's too scary for me. Like that's too big of a risk. But if he's gonna get one more murder, I'm a little more open to this, I think.
I think we need to kind of incorporate, full discussion of who we think gets murdered next into
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's like what the plans that they had made and what they might do or what they should have done and all that stuff. Because now that they made this plan and they decided to go for Steven, we know the 4 names that are up on the chopping block right now that they put on the short list. It's Johnny and Tara, which are very centered name, specific, part of the game, part of what people are suspicious on them right now. And then you have Natalie, who Rob is worried about, and you have Kristen, who now Eric has to be worried about. So, both of the traitors have like one person that they would like to see go, but then there's duo. And that's the point that you guys are talking about here of like, well, do we have to split them up ourselves, or do we really just bank on the fact that there are so many people that are still talking about them that surely there's nobody else that'll go next besides one of the 2 of them?
I think if you're Rob, you have to kill Kristen. If you're Rob, that is to me, I don't want to get ahead of myself. It feels like a guaranteed win for me. Like they're at 8 right now. You kill Kristen, you throw Eric all the way under the bus. He gets got at the next round table. You've got your guy. Okay. So now like the witch hunt for the male traitor is gone. Eric is out the door. There's 6 people left. You're at the phase of the game where people aren't even necessarily going to be revealing their, roles and stuff. Yeah. I don't know how late he can even use the dagger, but
just next week.
Then you're putting Rob in a final 6 with Mark, with Maura, with Natalie, and you're leaving the figure skating duo in the game, which is going to be what everybody wants to look at first, is splitting up the duo. That is just so clean on paper if you're him, but I think it might be the worst choice for Eric possible.
My initial thought was I think we might end up going Natalie. It does seem like he genuinely wants to keep Eric around at least for a little bit. And so I was wondering if it was like too direct to go for Kristen. Is it like, do we want to shine that light right now? As well as I feel like Natalie really had her target set on Steven. She's not really on the Johnny and Tara train. So get her out of here before we don't know where she's going to redirect. The thing is, I feel like Kristen is obviously very close with Mark, and I feel like Rob has also expressed that he's very close with Mark. So getting rid of Kristen really does free up even one more number one ally for Rob, where it's just getting rid of a pair in the game, which is so dangerous when we get down to the final 5 or 6, and locking in that other ally as probably like your next closest person. I think Kristen is probably the right move. I don't know if he's going to execute, though.
I hadn't even considered that when we last talked, because I was thinking about just the fact that like Kristen could implicate Eric, obviously, if Mark knows about that. But who cares if you're Rob?
Just like
you,
the Colton kill for him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this will either be really bad for Eric or not bad for Eric.
Exactly.
And if it's not bad for Eric, that's really good for me. And if it's bad for Eric, that's also pretty good for me. And just putting yourself in a world where if you were to assume, like you said, Scally, like if Mark comes straight to Rob, he's in 6 with Mora and Mark.
Yep.
Like he has half the votes at 6. That's might be all you need to win the game. And so that could be, if that is also his read, right? That taking out Kristen locks up Mark for him. I don't see where there's a better choice, but it's going to be hard if you're like Rob has to make a choice here of, is he tethering himself to Eric a little bit further and risking it to keep Eric around, which he does seem inclined to do.
Yeah.
Or is he going to do the same thing that he did with Lisa and is just like, at first sight of adversity, you're gone. Like, I got to protect myself.
No, it feels like he's definitely giving Eric much more than he gave the other 2 traitors that he had. I mean, with Candace, he's like, I'm not even going to tell you that Colton said your name. I'm just going to let you do this. Here, the first thing he says the second they get to the turret is, just so you know, Kristen even further pushed your name. And I don't know. I mean, I might just be saying this all because I want Natalie to survive another episode. All I want is Natalie's success in this game. But like, I could be convincing myself that it makes much more sense. Plus, you guys are saying it too, to kill Kristen at this point. She's obviously got the Tara connection that you can just put it back onto Tara and say that this, Tara wanted her out. But I'm thinking about Eric Nam and the anxiety that he brings to the game, which again, I can relate to. If I was him, I'd be in the same spot. And if you told me I have the option to take this person out right now who is saying my name, and it's just so much easier for me to then talk to everybody else and say, it wasn't me, obviously it was Tara, rather than me having to face this person myself and continue to convince them, which I already wasn't doing a good job at during the night of. So how could you not take up that offer of murdering her?
I think there's also the potential of like, okay, Rob is telling Eric, but is he telling Eric out of the goodness of his heart of like, Eric, they're going to come for you and like, you need to be worried about that? Or is it Rob wants Kristen dead and Eric has a pretty good relationship with Kristen? The way to break that up is by warning him she's coming after you. So it really could be just, this is something to further my game rather than it is to help Eric at all.
And I do think this is where they'll end up settling, because I just think the read that you had, Matt, of Eric, if it's another traitor, maybe you're like, I can convince Kristen, right? Like I can take Kristen and get Kristen back on my side. Eric is a flight in the fight or flight, right? And he is going to want as easy of a day as possible. He's sitting there telling Rob, okay, well, you need to back me up with Mark. Well, theoretically, Rob could still back you up with Mark once Kristen's dead and Kristen's off your back. And now Rob can try to get Mark off your back too. And if it doesn't work, then maybe Rob just, peddles that narrative a little bit and sends him under the bus. But I don't see Eric being enthused about, hey, let's have another day where it's all on me to convince this person why I'm a faithful, and having to be very like on point in his conversations.
And I can't emphasize enough that Tara Lipinski is right there. Kristen was voting for Tara. Kristen thinks it's Tara. And, at the end of the day, they were trying to push the narrative that possibly one of the traitors put themselves on the short list. It's too easy of a narrative to sell that. Like, why would they pass up that opportunity if it's there? Just because they're afraid of Natalie. Like, as they said, get Natalie next time. I don't know if they will have a chance to murder Natalie.
I think Natalie's easy to throw under the bus whenever you want. I mean, she's been so messy that like you could make a case of 8 pieces of evidence against Natalie at this point that like
Even if she's
As
at the
soon as
final
she-
5, she's getting voted out. She's
Yeah.
not making it to. No one's
as soon as
winning
she's
the game.
not
with her.
valuable to Rob anymore, I think between like the anecdote thing and that, like obviously all the hoopla about that.
Yeah.
But then even or Candace not throwing the vote at her and doing like the burn vote instead. Even this one, Natalie can kind of be clearly the person that swung on Steven and got the attention off of Johnny and Tara and kind of like swung it all the way over to Steven after Natalie was like, was she not the one that just randomly accused Tara of being a traitor like 2 weeks ago? And now she's like off that entirely and swinging it back to Steven.
It is tough though, because I'm like, who's pushing it on Natalie right now? Because I feel like Maura was the one that I thought might have been doing that a couple weeks ago. Maura kept getting like you kept the camera would go to her and you're like, oh, she's on Natalie's ass. And then lately it seems like they're fine. They're discussing their susses together, and so I'm like, who is going to turn the tables on her unless it's at the final fire?
Yeah, it was at one point Tara. I think that has subsided a little bit. I think ultimately, though, in the same way that I would continue voting out every other man until I found a male traitor, as much as I love Natalie, I would continue voting out every single gamer until I found a gamer traitor. And so I think that the fact that none have stood up there and said, I'm a traitor, I think that Natalie could just get voted out by like, we literally have to. Like, there's no world in which we can let you continue.
Yeah. And somebody like Mark, I could see being a person who you're at the final 6, final 5, and he eventually goes to Rob and is like, yo, what if it's Natalie? You know, there's got to be a gamer in there somewhere. And the same way that the meta could come back to get Rob, I think it could be what is Natalie's undoing as well as you get down the stretch here.
Sam, would you oh, sorry, guys.
No, I was gonna say I do think just exploring the other world of where it's not Kristen and Natalie ends up going here, assuming that Natalie ends up going here, we really are having like it led to us that we might be focusing on banishing Eric. That final 6 of the pair of like Johnny and Tara, Kristen and Mark, Rob and Maura is a very interesting like 3 duos heading in. Which is why I don't think he'll let it happen.
It's the far more interesting thing. Yeah. And that's exactly why I think if you're Rob, you cannot leave Kristen in there. Like, you have to get her gone.
Yeah.
But it for a viewer and for like competitive balance, I think that would, Natalie being the murder would be a better TV product down the stretch.
Yeah. Sam, what'd you think of Johnny Weir and Tara Lipinski and their big moment in this episode of the big reveal? For those who did not know, we are best friends. We've worked together for 11 years. Obviously, it seemed like a very last-ditch effort that, as Johnny put it, he's like, everybody out there, the whole game is against us right now. We have nothing to lose but going all in on we trust each other because we know each other better than any of you know each other. And I'm telling you, she's a faithful, he's a faithful. Trust us or don't.
So I was ready to be like very laugh at their expense and stuff. I mean, like they think they're doing their big one here. And, you know, there's Family Guy episodes about Johnny Weir and Tara Lipinski making fun of how they don't leave each other's side. Like this is a bit that exists in pop culture. Apparently they've done a decent job because there are people in the castle that did not seem to know that they were this close. That being said, could you be more stupid as to reveal it at this point in the game, in my eyes? Like, I mean, hey, I know everybody thinks we're a traitor right now. I just want to tell you we're not, because we've actually been lying to you guys the entire game. We've been deceiving all of you, and we're actually really tight, and so we've lied. But from now on, we're going to tell the truth. I promise. We'll be good now. And trust us that we haven't also been traitors the entire time. It doesn't feel like, and again, at this stage in the game too, even if you're not a traitor, a duo is just, who wants that in the game? Who wants that in the castle of knowing that these people will literally scream. I loved what Mark chimed in with, right? Being like, hey, I work with partners, and like if my dance partner was out here on Traitors, I wouldn't just trust them because I know them from work and I work with them. And they're screaming, no, we trust each other with our lives. if I'm anybody else, I'm like, okay, you know, one of you has to die. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
care.
and that's a great, obviously, like, you know, the showing that connection I think is tough, but I think I ultimately came down on the side of like I didn't feel like they had any other gameplay to make here. They had nothing else that they could do. Johnny was about to go out the door, so it's like for
And
a
it
last
worked.
ditch effort,
So-
they're talking about, you know, this group of people really want evidence. Everybody wants some concrete evidence, and the only evidence we can offer you is we have been best friends IRL. I was in her wedding party. We know each other like nobody's business. And I'm looking you all in the face saying that I know she is good and she knows that I am good. And so it's, if nothing else, like again, with their backs completely up against the wall and Johnny with one foot out the door, that's why I thought it was a worthwhile attempt.
I think that it's the type of thing like, yeah, you have to be in the game to win the game. And so,
Yeah.
like, I'm glad for them that they got to stay the extra week. I just don't know if it really gives them a lot of like long term win equity.
100% my analysis of it too.
Yeah.
And so I
Longevity
think
tanked.
for me, like if I'm Natalie, let's say, and I'm going to the final five, and there's like both Tara and Johnny who 100% trust each other. I don't really have a strong read on that they could pull off being a traitor for the whole season, and so I'm not so sure that they're going to do that. Whereas on the other side, I have like Rob and Kristen who like really could be a traitor. They might, but also like I don't have the guarantee that we could also just get to final three and they're just going to vote me out for safety. Like I'm not going with the pair. Like I'm still probably taking my chance with the person who may or may not be the traitor over the like, in my mind, because I would do it, guaranteed getting vote out at final three because I have a close partner here.
Yep. Yeah, you are 100% guaranteed. You can't go to 4 with them. And it's one of those things. It's not that they're, I mean, they are bad faithfuls, but it's not even the bad faithful argument that I was talking about with like Michael Rappaport earlier. But it's just like, I can believe that you're a faithful and still acknowledge that you existing prevents me from winning the game. And so I will banish you fully believing that you're a faithful, and I'll be unapologetic about it because it clears the board for me to have more paths to like survive. And I think especially you mentioned like Natalie, a gamer who is aware of those voting tendencies and whatnot. I bet you that's being filed away by her as something to consider down the stretch. And certainly I think as Rob has shown the capacity to be thinking a step or two ahead in that regard. And I would imagine he's factored that in as well.
And if you go back to season 2 with CT and Trishelle, like if people knew how close that they were, or that they had this unbreakable, we've known each other as long as we've known each other bond while they both trusted each other, people probably don't want to go to the end with them. So yeah, obviously, I think that's something to consider.
Like my read is I don't think Johnny and Tara are the type who are like, we need to get to final two to get more money and vote out someone else who we think also might be a faithful. Like I don't think that's them. I would probably like, you know, from a viewing standpoint, like if I have to bet on it, like I'm probably betting on they don't do that. But like as a player standpoint, like I'm never taking that bet. I'm always taking me getting to the end over them potentially having the world voting me out.
Look, CT and Trishelle did it for the money. I could see Johnny and Tara doing it out of paranoia, as like they've been really scared faithfuls the entire game. So they could be there with Kristen at the very end and be like, we fully trust Kristen, but the only person in the world I know 100% that I can trust is you, Johnny. And then they both vote out Kristen because that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
And again, if you're Kristen, can you take that risk? You're probably not, you know, that's tough.
We're obviously looking ahead to the final couple of weeks, the final couple of rounds, the finale right around the corner. Sam, I feel like you've had some positive thoughts on Rob's game so far. Are you seeing a world where this ends any other way than Rob winning? Do you see any signs that anyone is prepared to take him down? He's got obviously all these allies, Mora, Natalie. He's got trust from Mark. Is there any world that you see someone getting it over on him before he gets on them?
Not right now. Not right now. I think this is the best Traitors game we've ever seen. I think it will go down as that.
Better than Suri?
I think it's better than Suri.
Ooh.
I know that's like hot take on the internet.
Does too.
I mean, Suri was obviously great, but I also think Suri played in a game where the meta didn't even exist and people didn't really even know what Traitors was. And half the people were not familiar with, you know, reality television or being on TV or games in general. So I think she was fantastic. I just think there's so many more hoops that, and like Suri didn't have to do a murder in plain sight. Suri didn't have to like do any of these other things that the current Traitors have to deal with and manage. And I think because of that, the current game, I think it's just so much harder to be a traitor. And and Rob has just been clean. Like I haven't did this murder banishment decision might be the only time that I've like slightly even questioned a decision that he's made. I feel like he's been pretty flawless all the way through, which is crazy. And I keep waiting for it to turn and the other shoe to drop. I keep waiting for that confessional from somebody. Like I think back to like Survivor 41 when like Ricard gives his confessional being like, I've decided that it's time for Shan to go. And I was like, and there it is. It was gonna happen. And now here we go. But it just seems like everybody's so like smitten by him that I don't know if it's coming. He's killing it.
And with the history of what he's had so far, did you have any issues with how he handled Lisa Rinna and Candace, his fellow traders? Was working so well with them, and then
no, I thought it was actually great. Lisa was a lost cause, and I think what I mentioned earlier, Rob's best ability as a trader is I think he knows, he's able to see with foresight. Like he can see ahead. He knows what's coming. And so something like Candace going to bat for Lisa and throwing this vote at Rob, and like she's obviously playing emotional and she was such good TV. I loved Candace so much, but like there were game moves along the way that were just not the smartest game moves to be a trader and survive. And I think Rob knew, I mean, what was his whole argument with Lisa? He's like, well, I'm really close with Ron and I've been advocating for Ron to other people. And I'm really tight with Natalie, whoever the other person was at that roundtable catching heat. He's like, I can't vote for either of those two people. But Colton, it was. But he's like, those are my two people that I've been playing the game with. That would be so weird if I just randomly don't vote for Lisa. And he's been able to see that. So I haven't had an issue with it. I think he's done a really good job. I'm here for the spice of Candace like throwing it back at him and giving him that rivalry. I thought was the best episode of the season so far, Candace's boot episode. But yeah,
you think Rob's got the win?
Roush fan, unfortunately.
I think it's hard when evaluating the two games because, like you said, okay, like half the people in that game didn't really know reality TV, didn't really know Suri coming in, so she didn't have as big of a threat level as she might have had coming into like an all-stars cast. But Suri had some threat level going in. There were some people that did know her, whereas Rob comes in with the benefit of the meta not pointing at all towards Love Island players to most of the people not knowing Rob at all. Most people are like, this sweet, innocent boy. And if you watched Rob's Love Island season, like, this is not a sweet, innocent boy. So, like, there's lots and lots of people who didn't know a single thing about him and, in fact, had, like, a much, much more positive view of him coming in. So I'm not saying that I think one is definitively better than the other right now. I think I still probably would lead Suri. She was able to get out both of her other traders without them firing back at her and without them like feeling so burned. So I think that's just slightly better. I think that Rob being able to survive that adversity is like a huge win in his column. I thought 100% sure that we were going to have at least some people be like, well, why did Candace vote Rob? Well, why did Candace point right back at Rob? Well, why? And like the fact that they were like, that never could ever be a consideration in our mind, definitely is super, super good for him. But it never happening in the first place is probably even better. So it's tough to say.
We obviously also have to see how he finishes the game because we are assuming at this point, you know, that it's just going to be a Rob win. And if it is, then obviously that's easy to compare. And it's still what I'm rooting for the most at this point, even though I love Maura, I love Natalie. I would like to see the two of them have success, but Natalie, it's not going to happen. And Maura, I've not seen anything from at this point to feel like she is going to end up. I mean, look, if she's there at the end on the team of faithful and they get Rob, then I think she's the winner. I don't think she's getting banished at this point. There's no sus on her. And honestly, at this point, for anyone who's got like negative things to say about Maura because they feel like she's not doing anything, just wait for that reaction at the final 2, 3, 4. If Rob is there and Rob wins the game, being there with her and any other traders, she's gonna freak out, and she might curse him out. I hope she does. That'll be fun. She'll have, I'm sure, a lot to say at the reunion, but that'll make it all worth it.
Even Suri, like, I think if I was going to point to one big mistake in Suri's game, or like potential mistake, I was left jaw dropped at the final 4 when she wants to continue to vote, and it's like, how does Ari not just like completely throw her under the bus here? But even Ari was like, okay, like, you know, congrats, Suri, like walks off without like picking a fight at all. So I do wonder if Rob finds himself in a similar position. Let's say we have somehow Eric survives next week and it is like Rob getting down to the end with like a Maura and an Eric. Like, if they continue, does Rob continue to vote? Does he vote out Eric? Does he vote out Maura and just split the win? Like, I don't know yet. I'm curious.
My question, and like this is why it's hard to kind of compare, like especially on such extreme ends of the spectrum of first season to like present season, is my question always comes back to like culture and understanding of the show and that meta, right? Like I wonder, does somebody like Ari go down kicking and screaming, throwing Suri under the bus if he's seen Phaedra and Dan and Danielle and Carolyn, right? Like, and if he's seen these traitors take each other down and Boston Rob, burn Bob the Drag, like, right? We've seen the traitor crime already.
Yeah.
That hadn't happened yet on US Traitors when that happened. And Ari was kind of he's just like a quiet like guy, right? Like it was a great choice by Suri bringing Ari into the fold. But it also is like, I wonder how different that might be versus like now. I don't know if somebody goes down quietly at the final round table when they're betrayed by their other traitor.
Yeah. Sam, what do you think about just in general? Another topic we've had come up here a lot is just the casting and who's left in the game. You look at last season and you look at, at least two of the winners that made it to the end were not the biggest characters of the season. And here we're really starting to like crack some of these people's stories wide open because we're at the end game and we needed to reset the board with all of these people that didn't have a lot of story up until now because all the bigger players have now been murdered or banished. So just kind of like generally the state of how the Traitors does some really good casting, but also has a couple of question marks that seem to keep going far.
I like this cast a lot. And I like it a lot more than last season. I think maybe the last 2 seasons, actually, I like this. I don't know. I really like the group of this. I would have to look back at the season 2 cast and get like the full landscape again. I thought the Traitors picks were great, like super entertaining, but also controlled. Like Lisa Rinna is perfect in terms of TV pizzazz and pop, but not being Danielle, like, where it was too much all the time. And I found it like kind of to be a headache to watch sometimes. I really like this group. And I think one of the things I love about the Traitors, and it comes with the risk of having some duds on a cast or some like lower, Dolores and Ivor like winning at the end of the day. But it's your Gabby Windies and Dylan Efrons. And it's your like the idea that just people that you would be like, why are you two interacting? Why do I have Rob Sesternino, Donna Kelsey, and Monet Exchange in the back of a car together? Like, this doesn't make sense. That I think that is such a fun spot. So I love how widespread they go, how many risks they take. And they have found some like real gems. Like Gabby Windy, I watch Bachelorette, or I have before. I did not remember her whatsoever from when she was on that show. I thought it was a really odd casting choice at the time. And then it plays out. I'm like, that was such an inspired casting choice. She's fantastic. She's a superstar. Yeah. And so I do think they take these big swings, and sometimes you get like an Eric Nam or somebody who's just kind of like a background character that stumbles into being a traitor, but then you also hit some real home runs. And seeing how the dynamics of the casts are going to work, I think, is really what I watch for. As like a game player, I love strategy games. The Traitors is not all that strategic, like there is so much of it is just kind of like, you can have the best strategy possible, get murdered night 2. And then you're just like, okay, well, so much for my strategy. That's out the window. But I really like to see how the cast interacts with one another and the tension and the drama. And they deliver that every season. So that's why, hey, every week they got me.
I think this season has made me nervous, but I think it's more of an outlier in terms of a lot of the murdered faithfuls have been huge characters. And I think that's not been the case on other seasons. And so I worried, like, is this going to become like a new standard? Because I think generally you assume when you cast a Stephen Kleti and Eric Nam, like those are probably going to be the fodder murders towards the beginning of like, how is anyone ever going to suspect them? They're not going to be that loud at a round table. Like, let's just, and if they are, great, we get a surprise, bonus character of the season. But these are really the people that are probably not getting a whole lot of suspicion, and thus you need to take out in a round where, they're not a target, they're not a shield for you. And seemingly a lot of them made it to the end this time. And so I think people are very worried that like, what if this happens again? We get all the gamers and everyone's so scared of the gamers next times that when you finally get like Courtney Yates back on television, she's the first one murdered. So like, I understand the concern there, but I do think this is probably an outlier. if I had to guess.
Just like, why cast the fodder then? Like, if you're like,
That
oh,
would
they
be
may
my
not give
point.
us anything, then don't cast them. There's so many good picks.
I think they're good enough at casting too. Like I kind of agree. Like they're so good at casting. They find people all the time. I think they know what to look for. That you should be able to identify when you have a Gabby Windy and like a Dylan Efron who are going to like play particular roles on a season and be some of your central characters versus if you have like a Dolores who's not going to bring anything to the table or like Ivor who's not going to talk. And I hope that they can make that distinction moving forward because they certainly are not. It's not like a budget thing. Like it's the show everybody wants to be on.
Yeah.
They have no issue going out there and getting big time A-list celebrities if they wanted to. So it's more of just like the creative choice that they shoot for.
And it's also the editing, as Scally's pointed out as well.
Of course,
you know, they've certainly done no favors to themselves to take all of these people who, like, no one came into the season being like, oh, Kristen Kish is so boring. Like, we're so mad about Mark Ballas being here. And they've just been invisible up until now. So you're sitting here like, well, what's their story? What's going to happen? Why am I invested on Kristen Kish possibly getting murdered in the penultimate episode of the show? I'm kind of not. Well, maybe now I am because she had a good episode this week to really let me know on where she is. But editing too.
And I don't really blame them for cases like, and not to keep picking on her because I feel like she's always the example I use of like Ekin-Su, who was just like so exciting and so fun. And I love Ekin-Su on Love Island. I need to review Ekin-Su outside of the show. But love Ekin-Su on Love Island, so exciting. And then she comes on the show and it's kind of like, no, trust me, guys. Like it's gonna happen eventually. Like she's gonna be super fun, and then it doesn't. Like I don't blame them really for those. Even let's say Dorinda coming back this season, I think a lot of people expected a lot more, and were ultimately a little disappointed by the level of personality that ended up in the final edit at the very least. But like, and just, you know, he's the most recent banished. I think he brought something to the show with Stephen Kleti, but like having seen him on Laguna Beach, I was like, all right, you know, this is cool because I know who this is from forever ago, but never expected Steven to be the star of the season by any means.
Let me take this to like the furthest possible place that if that like the editing could screw us over. Imagine Tiffany New York Pollard finally answers the phone and signs the contract to come here on the Traitors, and you have to sit here defending her and saying no, just because she wasn't picked as a traitor, she's actually entertaining. I promise. There's so much that you can look at, and just like imagine like somewhere like all the way on that end of the spectrum of like, no, trust me, but if the show doesn't do a good job for whatever reason,
and that right there is where like the format is flawed in a sense, and where I almost feel like it's inevitable to have some of these seasons where this just happens because number one is the show is called The Traitors and it is shown through the eyes of the traitors 85% of the time. So unless you are a top 3 faithful, I would say, like who is really leading, you know, the story of the faithfuls each season, you are going to fall more into the background, and that can be really disappointing for people who are specifically tuning in for one person or one contingency of a show. And then 2, they obviously the format of the show also just rewards being bad at the game, right? Like if you are a faithful, being stupid and being best friends with the traitors and having no clue what's going on is better, right? Like, you know, somebody like Michael Rappaport comes in and was not boring, certainly not boring on the TV screen, but like his actions that are not boring, why would the other players want to keep that in the game? It's annoying for them to be in the game with. So it's just like between the format and the theme of the show in general, I do think you run the risk of having people fade into the background a little bit more. And I've always wondered if there was a way to incentivize better players. Like did they try to do it with the shields, but then the shields kind of just feel more like luck a lot of the time than they do anything else. And I wonder how much, right, if you are a great gamer who's a faithful and you know you want to make a deep run into the game, how much can you being super good at being a gamer actually extend your stay because it gives you like long life on banishment. I don't know what that looks like, but I think there's some changes they could do.
It's so sobering when you have like a faithful like last season, like Sierra Miller, like kind of in the mix. She's getting accused at multiple roundtables, and then you look at the confessional count. She last 8 episodes, and she's in like has 6 confessionals or something. Like it's some of these faithfuls, like even if they're doing halfway decent, it's just they're completely lost to the editing, and so I do think it's even more that, unfortunately.
think you guys are a little bit more, of the gaming or the strategy minded, like could figure out how to incorporate this into the game. But let me just continue every opportunity that I remember to do so. That I would love to have an Edge of Extinction, a Redemption House exist for this show, because all of the people that were eliminated, if they were still on the show in some capacity, this would be unmatched television. And it started out feeling like Traitors is unmatched television, but obviously as we get deeper into seasons, we're picking things apart a little bit more. We expect a lot from the show, but if I had guaranteed every episode that we could go to the Redemption House and I could see Rob and Monet still interacting, and Tiffany's all pissed off, and Candace and Lisa just got out and they want to get back in the game and get revenge. I don't know how it would work. I have no idea, but I think it's worthwhile.
I will give them this, right? This is probably the thing I'm most happy with about Traitors as a viewer, is they do seem to adapt quite well. In terms of it's subtle season to season, but they do continually add wrinkles to the game to like give us a little bit more. It was always what I hated about, I mean, go not to again come back to like season 1 and completely bash season 1, but like, I mean, what are we even going off of here? It's literally just like throw a dart at a dartboard and then be like, well, I think that this person blinked fast after like we opened our eyes after Alan tapped us on the shoulder, right? Like we're literally grasping at straws, trying to do anything. And I think they've done a really fun job of like adding the murders in plain sight and doing things like the banquet and just like different fun things to like get more players involved in the actual game, get more like evidence out there, make it a little bit more like different and engaging to have some strategy aspects and make people have to make tough choices rather than hang out in the background. Cause that is ultimately like optimal Traitors play, is just don't talk to anybody, hang out in the background, whatever. So I think they could do it. You know, like I think if they needed to incentivize shields to become big strategy for the gamers out there, they needed to add a redemption house to like milk every last bit of housewife we can get. I have confidence that they would be able to like find something that works and delivers because they've done it before.
I mean, there was a game of oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say there was a game of RHAP Mafia that I feel like a redemption house would have been nice for
yeah
for a certain someone.
Out first. That's tough.
It's tough. It's tough. I feel like the Redemption House is so like, how do you, they've had where on like international seasons of the Traitors where like, okay, 2 people were instantly eliminated from the game and then they come back in the game, you don't know if they're going to be a traitor or a faithful, and like I guess you could do that where it's like 2 people enter the game again and one of them is probably like, you're just going to vote them both out. Like there's like no world in which you don't. So I think it would be a big obstacle to figure it out. And then like, what are they doing when they're just sitting on edge of extinction? Is it just nothing? And then we're never even hearing from
playing Jack in the Box.
I wonder, is there a way that we can do instead of like, or like kind of edge of extinction without the return to the game, but the edge of extinction, extortion like, kind of a thing where we're at a redemption house, but the redemption house isn't for you. It's to help the people that you want to help, right? Like whatever that, you don't know if they're faithful or traitors, right? Like you leave with your perceptions of people and the allegiances that you think that they are. But if I outmug Lisa Rinna and the redemption house, now I can send an advantage or like a shield or a dagger or like something to somebody that they can pull out at any time. Like maybe there's a way to help your people, and then we also get a little bit of like a live feed or a bonus feature beyond the castle on Peacock of all the banished and murdered people, going at each other for.
And the redemption house is the house in the woods. They just all have to
that cabin.
Yeah. The church. They're all stuck in the church.
Yeah, sure.
That's the idea I like by far the most so far. So I would be curious.
Good. All right. Well, Sam, anything else that we didn't talk about today that you wanted to talk about, whether about the game, the players?
I've just like I've enjoyed it. I feel like I all of the stuff that we bring up, to me, it's all very like nitpicky and whatnot. Yeah. Obviously, we all want like the best product possible, but man, Traitors delivers. Like it really is. I just have fun watching it. And it's nice to. Survivor, like I can't really watch it without turning off my brain. of strategy, like which I love that too, but it is like I'm always thinking about optimal moves and strategy and trying to like put myself in the perspective of players. And sometimes when I watch the Traitors, I just like sitting back and watch them just fight. And like, I just like watching the drama, and so it's always fun on a week to week basis. And I'm enjoying the season again. It is a blast. Who's had the best outfits? Can I ask you guys that real quick?
Ooh.
I mean, are we looking overall or at this final group?
I mean, who stood out of this final group as being outfits? I feel like
Okay, I'll give some credit to Johnny Weir. I've never once looked at him and been like, oh, he's not understanding the assignment. Rob Roush has had obviously interesting outfits that I don't know
he's
if they've
been so hit
landed
or
with
miss for
everybody.
me.
Yeah,
I agree. For me,
hit or
it's
miss.
number one, clear and away Mora. I think she has
Mora for
delivered
sure.
every single
Ooh.
week. I think
Okay.
Mora has been serving every single week. I think underrated is Mark Ballas. I think Mark is dressing the season, and people are not really taking note of it online. And I feel like I've been pretty impressed, especially where sometimes the men either don't try or take swings that really, really miss. So I've appreciated Mark.
Yeah,
He had that like Peaky Blinders look going on this week.
Yeah.
And I was it suited him. I enjoyed it. My little fashionista shout out.
Ooh.
I'm going back to Kristen. Because she looks like a boss every week.
Yes.
And that's part of it too. I'm fanning big time over Kristen Kish watching this season because she's just got the vibe. She's got the little 2-piece suit with the stripe and the chain, and she's doing it. She's doing her thing.
Ron Funches has the wardrobe that I think Stephen Kleti should have had. Ron always had like a fun sweater, like fun colors, things were popping. Steven's, I swear, I said this in the recap. I feel like he's got like 7 different sweaters that are all like the exact same style, and then they have like a couple subtle differences, and then he, I don't know. But so
Stephen Kleti's dressing in the Traitors house how I dress in my everyday life, but we're in the castle. Like none of the fits are bad. I enjoy all the fits, Stephen. You look great, man. But and like, take a shot here. Like, put something special on.
And the big loss on the season, besides the fact that we lost Rob for like Rob Sesternino being on the show, it sounded like he had some fits packed. So that's disappointing. And hopefully we'll get to see more of those.
Please, immediately was like, you better serve at the finale. I swear to God. Like that reunion, show up.
I just kind of thought he needs to get on with Bryce Isaiah and do a special exclusive Zaddy calendar that's just all of the Traitors fits. Rob
all Traitors.
He never got to wear these in the castle, so here they are in calendar format for you.
Sign me up. I'll buy it. Sam, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Anywhere you want people to check you out online or anything at all that's going on?
Oh man, well I'm active on Twitter X. It's a lot of sports. It's for my job. Bear with me. If you are a weird crossover reality TV like big sports fan, maybe it's the perfect spot for you. But I am going to get ramped up back in my hot takes here as Survivor 50 ramps up. So the tweets and the live tweets are all coming here in a couple weeks.
And you just did a really fun podcast with Rob talking about the great Survivor athletes.
Great is certainly an adjective you can use, but
the Survivor athletes.
Some of the Survivor athletes of all time.
Yes. So that was a nice long one, a fun listen if anybody hasn't checked that out yet. So there's that. Scally is on Twitch, on social media sometimes.
Social media sometimes. I think Survivor 50 will bring me back. We'll see to Twitter, where I feel like I've been a little quieter, but at Brian_Scally there. I don't know, Twitch B Scally. You'll see him.
And sometimes these two are both on the Saturdays in Dwight's lobbies over playing some Blood on the Clock Tower.
It's been a minute for me. I need to get back in it.
I know.
Yeah, you're gonna get rusty. Jeez.
Yeah, please. Rusty Sam is still
Thank you.
You can catch both Scally and I, of course, on patreon.com/the Free Agents Podcast for all of our bonus episodes. All of these episodes go up early and ad-free there, so check that out. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. Still a relatively new YouTube channel, so we're just trying to make it worth our while, make it worth your while. So hit that subscribe button, thumbs up the video, all that stuff to support us. And we said this on the recap, but also next week and the following week, only one Traitors podcast coming from us. The past couple weeks we've been doing 2, but as we close out the season, you get a little bit less to talk about. So we're just going to combine a little bit and really give you one super good, super worthwhile recap of everything happening as we penultimate episode next week, and then the finale the week after, and the reunion. So a lot of fun stuff coming up. I think that's it for now. So thank you again, Sam, for joining us. We'll be back next time, but until then, take care, and we hope to see you all in the future.